Okay, so we have talked about systems of equations and we did it by typing it in the calculator, but there is more than just one way to solve these systems. So sometimes you are just given two equations and no picture of a graph, and you have to figure out the solution. Now you can always still like solve for y and type it in the calculator, but there is a way to figure out the answer without typing it in the calculator and using a graph. And one method to do it is called substitution. Okay, so how do I know when is a good time to like use substitution? Well, when one of the equations is solved for a letter. So I have my two equations right there. This equation, obviously, it's not solved for x and it's not solved for y because it doesn't say x equals stuff and it doesn't say y equals stuff. But this second equation says y equals and then everything else is on the other side. So when I say, oh, it's solved for a letter, that's what I'm talking about. Y is alone and everything else is over here on that side of the equal sign. So that's how I know it's a good time to do substitution. So how do I actually do it? Well, you got to identify which equation has the letter that's alone, that's solved, okay? So in my question over here, I have y equals 5x minus 1, and I have negative 3x plus 2y equals 12. Do either of these equations say x equals or y equals? That's what I'm looking for. This first equation does. It says y equals, okay? So that means this blob over here, whatever this says, now this one says 5x minus 1, I'm going to substitute that into the second equation instead of having a y in there, because right now I have an x and a y. I can't get a number answer if I have two different letters. If I have one letter, I can. So that means I'm going to take this and I'm going to put it in this equation wherever the y was. So in this second equation, my y is right there. So I'm going to put some parentheses around it. And I'm supposed to be putting this blob, this 5x minus 1, I'm going to take the y out and I'm going to put this in instead. That's what substitute means, okay? So I'm going to write my new equation, the one that I'm substituting into. Negative 3x plus 2. And I'm leaving a big space because I'm going to put something else. I'm not putting y anymore. Notice I didn't put y on the outside. I'm not writing it at all down here. Equals 12. So I just rewrote this equation. And I am putting in there, instead of writing a y in there, I'm going to write this, 5x minus 1. That's the substitute into the other equation. Okay? So now that I have substituted, I'm supposed to solve for this letter. So I like draw the line down the equal sign, and I have to like follow the solving steps. So we know first step, oh, you got a parentheses, and I do have parentheses, so I'm multiplying this 2, I got to distribute onto the inside. So 2 times 5x, that's going to give me 10x. You can type this in the calculator. 2 times 5 would give me 10. And then 2 times negative 1 is negative 2. Make sure when you type this in the calculator, you're typing 2 times negative 1, not just 2 times 1. So that was me distributing. This 3x is still here. The negative 3x still there. What can I put in between? Well, the 10's a positive 10, so I put a plus sign. And this side was just 12, so we're going to put 12. The next step to solve for y is combine like terms. Can I combine like terms? Yes, I have an x and an x. I can add those together. Negative 3 plus 10. I add it. I type it in the calculator. It's going to give me 7x. This negative 2 is here, so drop it down. This 12 is here. Drop it down. Are all my letters on the same side? Yes. So the next step, I got to move naked numbers to the other side. So I have a negative 2 right now. To move it over there, I got to do the opposite. So I'm going to do, instead of negative 2, I'm going to do positive 2, positive 2. That cancels that out. 7x is still here. 12 plus 2, I typed that in the calculator, is 14. And then the last step, we know that means we're going to divide by that number 7. And I'm going to get x equals 14 divided by 7. You type that in the calculator, you get 2. You get 2. Now we know when we were typing these questions in the calculator, we got an answer in parentheses, like number, comma, number. Okay, right now, I only have one number as my answer, so I'm not done. I got to get two numbers in my answer to have a full and complete answer. So that was only step 3, was solve for the letter. Now I'm going to plug this number into the equation to solve for the other letter. Right now, I only know the X, and I need to know the Y number. So I'm going to take this X number. Now, which equation am I going to plug it into? Because I have two equations. Well, I'm going to plug it into the little blob that I circled up here. I'm going to plug it in there. I'm going to plug it in where the X is. So now this is 5 times 2 minus 1. We know when we plug it in, we're putting it in parentheses. Okay. So if it helps, I can draw the little arrow all the way up to the top. All the way up to the top into there. There we go. And we're going to type that in the calculator all at once. 5 parentheses 2 parentheses minus 1. And I'm going to get 9. Now I just have to make sure that when I write my answer, that I put it in the correct order. So we write the solution as X comma Y. So X and then Y. What was my X number? Was it 9 or was it 2? Well, it says X equals 2, so I'm going to put 2 first and then 9 second. And this is final answer is 2 comma 9. Okay. It gets easier after you do it a couple times. The first time it looks like a lot of work, but once we get better at solving, it gets a lot faster. All right, let's see another example. So in this one, here are my steps over here still. So I still need to figure out which equation has either X equals or Y equals. So this equation says 3X. I already know that's wrong because it doesn't just say X. It says 3X. And the second equation, it says X equals. Ding, ding, ding. That's what I'm looking for. Okay? So I'm going to circle the other side because this is what I'm about to plug in. Where am I going to substitute it? Well, I'm going to substitute it into the other equation, this first one. Am I going to put it where the X is, or am I going to put it where the Y is? Well, this says X, so I'm going to put it where the X is. So I'm going to rewrite this equation. 3, and I'm going to leave parentheses. I'm not writing X anymore. I'm replacing it with something else. I continue writing this equation up here. Minus 7y equals negative 14. Okay, make sure you still put the y over there. You're not substituting that. Now I'm plugging in into that big blank spot I left. I'm going to plug in this blob, this 2y minus 3. I notice when I plug it in this new equation that I wrote, there is only one kind of letter. There's a y and a y. I don't still have an X and a Y, otherwise I can't solve. So after you write your equation, double check, make sure there's only one type of letter in this equation. That's important. And now we're going to go ahead and solve this equation. So we're still following the steps. I got to do parentheses, I combine like terms, blah, blah, blah. So I'm multiplying, I got parentheses, I got to multiply, times 3 times 3. 3 times 2. I type in the calculator 6, there was a y, put the y. 3 times negative 3, I type that in the calculator, get negative 9. The 7y is not part of the multiplying, so I'm just going to drop it down. And the negative 14, we're going to drop that down. Next step, I'm combining like terms, so what over here can I add together? Well, I got a y and a y. They combine together, so you're going to do 6 plus negative 7. We're going to type it in the calculator. It's going to give us negative 1y. This negative 9 is still there. Did not change. Negative 14 is still there. Did not change. All right, next step. I need to move naked numbers to the other side. So naked number is negative 9. I got to move it. I got to do the opposite to move it to the other side. So I'm going to plus 9. Plus 9. Goodbye, 9. Drop down negative 1y. Equals negative 14 plus 9. You're going to type that in the calculator. You're going to get negative 5. And then the last step, I got to divide by negative 1. Divide by negative 1. And that's going to cancel out. I'm going to get y equals, I'm going to type -5 divided by -1, and I'm going to get +5. So I solved for the letter. I have one letter, so I'm halfway done. I need to get the other number. Where am I going to plug in this number? Oops. Where am I plugging in 5? I'm going to plug it into the blob. I'm going to plug it in for the letter y, because I just got y equals. So I'm going to put it in there. So now it's 2 parentheses 5 minus 3. I type that in the calculator, and that's going to be 7. So final answer, I go to write my final answer in parentheses. I know x goes first and then y. Which of these numbers goes first, 7 or 5? Well, I know that 5 is the y number, so 5 goes here. 7 was the x number, it goes first. And that's my answer. Let's look at one more. On this one, I still want to identify which letter is alone. Now, if I look at this one, I see, we know that means I'm looking for x equals or y equals. This says y equals. Okay, great. But this also just says y equals. Well, that's confusing. So I could, this would be a perfect one to just type in the calculator because it's already solved for y. So that would be easy to type in and just see what cross. You are allowed, you can still solve it by hand without a calculator, so I'm going to show you how to do that. Well, this says y equals, this is where the y is. So I'm going to put the blob in there. So I have x minus 1 on this side equals this on the other side. And you would solve for y. This is how you do it by substitution, or solve for x, sorry. So here we go. I need to get x's on the same side, so I'm going to move 2x to the right side. So that cancels. X minus 2x is -1x. Drop down that -1. That canceled. That's 2. I'm going to plus 1, this one to the other side to get naked numbers together. 2 plus 1 is 3. And then divide by -1. And I get x equals, I type this in the calculator, I get -3. And then I know I got to plug that in. -3, got to plug it in for x. I'm going to plug it in way up there, where the x is. Okay, so that's, what did we say, -3 minus 1. You type that in the calculator, you get -4. Okay, and then I got to write it as x comma y in parentheses, something comma something, x and y. So the number down here said x equals -3, so I'm going to put that right there on the x. And then the y number's got to be this other number, which is -4. And that would be the answer. On ones like this, I'm probably going to prefer that you type it into Desmos. There's nothing wrong with that. Easy, like, it's set up perfectly to do that. You still can do this, but just for, it's easier just to type it in. Now, last time we talked about sometimes there's no solution and infinite solution. So that still happens. Just because we don't have a picture of a graph doesn't mean that these do not still happen. We know no solution is when you have the parallel lines that never touch, and infinite solution is when you just have the one, it looks like one line. It's one line written twice. Now, since we're not doing graphs, how can I recognize that when I'm solving an equation? Well, our no solution, you're going to get to a point in your solving where when you combine like terms, you're going to get 0x. And on the other side of the equal sign, you're going to get some random number. Any number in the world, you're going to get 0x equals like 5, 20, 32, -6. Any number over here. But if you have a 0x equals any other number, I'm going to write it's no solution. Infinite solution, you're still going to combine like terms and you're going to get 0x. That's okay. You're going to combine like terms, you're going to add up and they get 0. But the other side this time is also going to be a 0. If you have a 0 on both sides, so when you combine like terms and when you like move your naked numbers, both of them add up to 0, that is when it's going to be infinite solution. So make sure you keep an eye out for those two. They are going to happen. You got to be ready. Otherwise, you guys can go ahead and start on today's assignment.